Okay, hi, welcome everybody. My name is Jamie McKenzie. Really excited to, I realize my screen is dirty. Hold on, give that a clean. That's always a nice thing, right? Really excited to be here with you guys tonight to be talking a little bit about homeschooling. So there are 4 homeschooling moms that are going to be leading tonight's Zoom. So myself, Christy Collins, Jen Keith, and Rachel Anderson. And I think it looks like all of them are on. I doubt with everything going on in the world that Zoom is something new to you. But if this is your first Zoom, there is a chat feature that you can use over on the side. So you can say hi. Just let us know where you're watching from. And we did our best to filter through all of the questions that you had, but because we had close to 260 people register, there were about 260 questions. So there was definitely a little bit of overlap. We're gonna do our very best to help answer as many as we can, but just a couple of little housekeeping things. So Christy and myself and Rachel and Jen, we are real human beings. We are veteran homeschooling parents, and we're just like you in that we are not perfect. We figure things out and pivot and adjust as we go. Homeschooling is not much different than parenting in that, we don't always get it 100% right. And there are days that, you want to just kind of lock yourself in the closet and eat chocolate. And we probably do that. So just like a little disclaimer that we're going to be sharing tonight our stories, how we got started with homeschooling. We are authentic homeschoolers. I know that right now so many of you were forced to school at home. So we're going to be talking about the difference between those two things. And my heart and all of us, our hearts just go out to all of you who were just pushed into a situation that you maybe weren't ready for or didn't want. The 4 of us here tonight chose to homeschool many years ago. So it's a little bit of a different, situation than some of you. But I know that for some of you, because I've talked to so many of you over the months, you had been thinking about homeschooling and you'd been looking at homeschoolers. And then when this happened, you said this might just be the perfect time. So we're going to be sharing real stories, why we got started, a little bit about ourselves, our unique families, our unique styles. You may not know that homeschooling is a very broad spectrum, so we'll go over that. And then we'll answer as many of the questions as we can, and then if we have time at the very end, we're going to open it up to Q&A. So I know we have people from all over the country joining. Ladies, Christy, Rachel, Pam, does anybody want to add anything to our Christy, Pam, Christy, Rachel, Jen, does anybody want to add anything before we like officially kick off? You can unmute, ladies.
Just excited to be here, Jamie, and so glad you did this, and so awesome that so many people are here exploring options. I think that's so great.
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful for you, Jen, and to Christy and to Rachel, just so we can collaborate. And I know Jen and I were talking about, we've been looking for ways to give back through all of this and just really step up and help. So that was our goal with this and our vision.
And sorry, I just wanted to add that I think it's phenomenal that so many of you are here, and that means because you're putting your kids first and their education first, and you're really thinking about them. So kudos to all of you for being here for your kids.
Absolutely, I agree. Okay, so I'm actually, let's see, let me go back to the spotlight. I'm trying to get a good recording here, so bear with me. I want to just pull up my notes. So I'm going to just tell you a little bit about, first of all, I want to go into the difference between homeschooling and schooling at home. And you'll be hearing us probably talk a little bit about that tonight. And I have a graphic for you that one of our fellow homeschooling moms, Vanessa Lopez, created. And I'm going to, at the end of this call, give you a link that you can click on, and then you'll have access to this graphic. Actually, let me share this with you, because this will be a good screen share here. Hold on one second. All right, so you can look at this for those of you that are visual learners. All right, hold on, not working. So let me just read to you, and then while someone else is talking, I'll sort out my tech issues over here. Gotta love Zoom. All right, so homeschooling is as varied as parenting styles are. So ranging from very, very structured curriculum all the way to no curriculum at all, and really everything in between. It's like this prismatic diamond. If you guys can just mute your line, that would be really helpful so we have a clean line. So it ranges from a structured curriculum to no curriculum at all. And though different states, and I know we have a lot of us that are joining from all over the country right now, though different states have their own requirements to homeschool, the pace and the curriculum are decided by the parents. So at the end of a week, it's not, oh, I have to get this work into a teacher, or I have to get this work into a district or to a school. It's run by the children and the parents. Schooling at home, which I know so many of you were pushed off a ledge into, follows the school district's educational plan via virtual learning or hybrid learning, and the grades, the assessments, the general curriculum are decided on and implemented by your school committee and or the teacher. And so I really do want to be able to just talk about like the difference between those two models, because some of you in your responses for the registration had said, well, we're going to be doing 3 days of homeschooling and 2 days of school in the building. And so I just want everyone to know the distinct difference between that, because if you have a teacher telling you what to do and when it needs to get done, and they want to see something at the end of the week, in essence, that's really more school at home versus homeschooling. So the four of us here tonight, again, we are homeschoolers. We've been doing this for many years. And actually, I think I'm going to go second because I feel like I've talked a lot already. So one of you ladies, like Rachel or Christy or Jen, do you guys want to go? And then I'll chime in with my story second.
I'm happy to start unless somebody else wants to jump in.
Thank you, Jen.
All right. Yeah, sure, Jamie. First, I just want to thank you one more time, Jamie, for doing this. And I love getting on and chatting with folks who are curious about homeschooling and thinking that it might be a fit for them. And I love that you pointed out the distinction and the difference between school at home versus homeschooling. I think that's a great mindset for parents to have going forward. So first, I'll tell you, I have two kiddos. My oldest is Owen, and he is going to be 13 in a few weeks, which is just wild to me. And then my daughter, Sydney, is 10. She'll be 11 in November. And we have two little guinea pigs who we love like crazy. And my husband. So there's four of us plus the two guinea pigs. And while I love talking about unschooling, it is never so we do a particular kind of homeschooling called unschooling, which some of you may be familiar with and some of you may not be familiar with. It was not something I was familiar with at all. I wasn't even really, to be honest, familiar with homeschooling. I really didn't even know the word 10 years ago. I had very specific visions of what homeschooling families must look like before I started for myself, and was really excited and surprised to find out just how diverse this community is and how many different reasons people homeschool, how many different ways people homeschool, and how just different everybody's days look like. And it seems to me like the way people come into this might sort of inform the choices they make about what kind of style best suits them and their family. For me and my family, something called unschooling is what fits the best. And my son did a couple of months of preschool. It wasn't a fit. I hadn't heard about homeschooling. I didn't want to send him to school. He was just too tiny for me. I had just gotten out of the craziness. As I said, I have two kids 2 years apart. I had just come out of the craziness of toddler mothering and infant mothering. And I was just like getting my stuff together, and he was going to go away from me. And that just broke my heart. Like I wanted him to reap the benefits of like the calmness we were finding. So I didn't want to send him to school. I knew school at home wasn't going to be a fit for us. I have a little bit of an educational background, and I knew school at home was not going to be a fit for us. Us sitting over a table, me instructing him very specifically about what to do wasn't going to be fun for me. And I really worried that it was going to destroy our relationship. So I was really sort of in a quandary. I learned about unschooling, and that's when everything sort of just fell into place for me. We had been attachment parents, so we had really solid understanding about what attachment looks like, and I had a good feel for all of that. So unschooling to me just felt like a nice continuation of that. We could just keep living life the same way that we were living it, playing and exploring and being curious, learning all the time. And that's basically, for those who aren't familiar with unschooling, which I'm guessing is a lot of you, to me, I'm 8 or 9 years into really diving in and learning about this, but still have a long way to go. To me right now, where I am in life, unschooling can be summed up by saying it is the real deep understanding that kids, and people for that matter, are learning all of the time. Every minute of every day. Yes, even when we're sleeping sometimes, and not by playing tapes into the subconscious, but we are learning every minute of every single day. And so my role as an unschooling mom is to support my kids while they are learning all of the time. So that might be with my excitement, with my curiosity, with resources. It might be by making sure they've got yummy food in their tummy so that they're not distracted by hunger or thirst, taking them wherever they need to go, helping them find this or that, and just really living life with them in an excited and curious way, so that they can learn all the time. And my husband and I both very much feel like our whole goal in life, like right now, while our kids are with us, my husband and my goal is just to create an optimal learning experience for our kids around the clock. Like that's our whole reason for being right now. And for us, this unschooling, it's called radical unschooling. That's how we accomplish it. And I'm going to share a few reasons about kind of why we love it so much why we love it and why it's been a good fit for our specific family, because as Jamie alluded to, there are so many different styles of homeschooling and everyone is different for every different family. What we're doing would be disastrous in some families, and what some other people are doing would be disastrous in our family. So it's really a matter of, what best fits for each family. But if you're looking to get started, everybody kind of has to have a starting point, right? So they wonder, what do we do to get started? And it's different in every state legally. Your legal requirements for homeschooling are different in every state. So you really need to find some sort of an organization or somebody that can provide you some guidance. There's loads of like Facebook groups and parent-led peer groups that will walk you through how to homeschool legally in your state. I would go one step further even and recommend that you find 2 or 3 or 4 of those groups, because in many states, there are different ways you can legally homeschool. And depending on the way your family works, one of those ways of homeschooling might be a better fit for you than others. So if you can find out, if you're just getting started and you can find out your options for that, I think that's going to put you in a really good place for getting started. There was one other thing I wanted to say about the legal requirements, but maybe it'll come back to me. And then the getting started sort of from the day-to-day stuff, I can only answer through the unschooling lens. Just like Jamie said, we all have different ways of running our days and the way our days go. To start unschooling well, it starts with a process called deschooling. And I'm not going to get into that. It's taken me a solid 5 years to even basically understand all of this. And, we're just giving basics here, but I have some resources I can share if there's some way we can get those out, Jamie, because there are like everything, there are great resources for learning to unschool well. And then there are resources that are actually going to steer families in the wrong direction and cause lots of chaos and disruption. So I'd love to share the resources that I've found valuable if there's a way to do that. So that's kind of getting started. Another question that comes up a lot and came up in the questions we were asked is about socialization. And it's one we homeschool parents are asked all the time. And I know I work really hard to make sure I don't sort of chuckle and I make sure I don't sort of roll my eyes because we get asked it so often, and because there's a little bit of irony in that question for us. And I totally understand where it comes from. But one of the things we love about the way we homeschool and unschooling, and one of the things we love so much about it is that we're out living in the real world. My kids aren't waiting until they're 18 or 22 to start in the real world. So now this is all pre-pandemic. Everybody's in a weird boat right now. But generally, we're out in the world most days of the week, socializing with grandparents and store clerks and museum volunteers that we have all to ourselves, and all these different shop owners and restaurant servers. That's in addition to the plethora of homeschool activities that happen on a daily basis among peers. So we kind of chuckle because our kids, and when people ask about socialization, what they mean is social interaction. So our kids are getting social interaction with all sorts of ages all day long, whenever they feel like it, not when they're told. I'm timing myself, and I've gone on longer than I wanted to, so I'm going to breeze through these things that we love about unschooling so much. But in addition to my kids living in the real world, which is something I value every single day, I love that we get to live in a way that makes sense for each of my family members on a daily and monthly and yearly basis, and in a way that makes sense for us as a family, rather than living under kind of the imposition of another schedule. So we don't have to go to bed at a certain time to get up and catch the bus at a certain time to make it to school at a certain time. We don't have to eat dinner at a certain time to get to bed at a certain time. So if my kids are in the middle of learning something, I don't have to stop that to get us to bed. I don't have to stop that to have dinner. We really have this sort of optimal learning environment around the clock, and I love that. I love, love, love that my kids can deep dive whenever they want, for however long they want, or however short they want. Any topic, they might spend a year learning to play guitar, and spend a day learning about World War II. But whatever, life isn't divided into subjects, right? And so they're learning so many different things when they deep dive into what looks like one really specific things. They're learning 100 other things, 1,000 other things that I can't even see at the time. And I love that. I also really appreciate from my own school experience that my kids are always learning in context, rather than them being a certain age and it being a certain day in October, so this is what they need to learn. I love that they are learning things because they're curious and excited, and it's because they're thinking about something else. They think about this thing, so then they learn about this thing, and then they wonder about this thing, and it's always in context. And that was not my school experience. I always thought I was really dumb in school. That was not my experience at all. And then lastly, to finish this off, the thing that is just most valuable to both my husband and I is that our lives are entirely our own. We determine what our days look like. We determine what we learn about. We determine when and where we travel, what activities we do, if we want to stay home or go out. Try to stay away from the word freedom, but the freedom that brings to learn anything and everything is just something I never could have understood. So I just want to say to all of you here, as I close out my little piece here, that as Jamie mentioned, I cannot imagine being thrown into the environment that you all were literally overnight. And if homeschool specifically is something that you're looking at, just like Jamie said, we started out so bumpy down the runway, hitting the wings. But eventually after these years, I think probably all four of us on this call have found really smooth sailing and just have entered this world that is unimaginably beautiful. And I think if I had known parenting could look like this before I had kids, I think just everything would have been really different. So I just wish you all the best of luck as you make this decision going forward. And we are all just in admiration of you and cheering you all on. You're doing amazing.
Thank you so much, Jen. That was fantastic. So it's kind of neat that we kicked off tonight hearing from an unschooling family. And now I know a lot of you are probably going to be Googling that, like, what the heck on earth is unschooling and deschooling? So I'm going to give you a little bit of a different perspective. I have a background and a master's degree in education. I taught for 10 years in an elementary school classroom. There were years I would have 27 kids in my classroom. And I knew that I was teaching right down the middle. Those kids that were super gifted, they didn't get it. They didn't. The kids that were falling behind, I struggled to give them what they needed. And that was just the system I was part of. And I did that for 10 years before I had kids. Had kids, knew I wanted to be home with my kids. And very similarly to Jen, my instincts kind of kicked over. And I, without even knowing, the minute my son was born, I kind of started homeschooling then. I didn't even know, but I nursed him when he needed to be fed. I extended that breastfeeding because I wasn't going to, just personal preference here, personal journey. I wasn't going to wean him before he was ready. So preschool came, and he had just stopped nursing. And I remember instinctually knowing, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right. And I'm getting goosebumps right now. Oh my gosh. And I didn't even expect to get emotional. I haven't really thought about this in a while. I can like feel emotion coming up. So it didn't feel right. I still have massive guilt to this day, clearly. And my intuition was like, don't do this. The other side of me was like, this is what you do. Children go to preschool. I have a master's degree in education. Let's start plugging my child and my children through this system. It's just, I was doing what I thought I was supposed to be doing. It's what I was taught. And it's the system I was part of. So I had my daughter by then. And let me also tell you right now, my kids are 11, almost 9 in like a couple of days, and almost 7 in a couple of days. So we've been homeschooling since the beginning, 11, 9, and 7. And anyway, at that moment, I was like, this doesn't feel right. And I'll go on to tell you, it was a local preschool, but I didn't like it. And I didn't like that they wouldn't let me watch him play through the window. And I didn't like that they actually at one point called me a helicopter mom. And I said, oh, I just have never seen him play with other kids. I'm just curious. And I was looking through the teeny glass window, and I didn't like the food they were feeding him. I was like, he's eating wheat thin crackers and coming home and not eating like the organic meals that I'm serving. And so wellness and health and listening to our bodies is a very big important part of our life. So anyway, a good friend and mentor gave me a piece of advice at that time that I want to share with you tonight. And I hope that you're able to write this down and go back to this. And I'm really honored to be able to pass this on, because I feel like that is what this is about. This is what empowering individuals, men, women, community is about. When we learn something that's helpful, it doesn't serve just by keeping it to ourselves. So my friend said to me, Jamie, just because you started on one path and just because you thought this is what you were going to be doing does not mean you need to send Noah back to preschool in the fall. You can withdraw him. And like my shoulder sank, and I was like, what? Like, I can change my plan? I was a new mom. He was like 2.5, 3. And I decided, no, everything is telling me this preschool isn't right. I didn't like the way they grouped all the kids by age. I didn't like what they were feeding, everything. So I pulled him out. And he was 3. And that was the beginning. I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old at that time. And that was the beginning of our homeschooling journey. And I started to seek out other families to do things with. So we had art club, and we had bread baking, and we did hiking, and we did farm trips. Now, I know that living here in a pandemic, like this might look a little different to some of you. However, you might be able to find your pod and people that you feel comfortable doing those things with. I know I see it on Facebook. People are still picking berries. People are still going to the library. People are still doing things. They're getting together in their yards. So I think you may need to accommodate and twist and change this a little bit. But you will still be able to find some of those communities. So I seeked that out, and I loved it. And just like Jen, I loved that we didn't have to have a set bedtime. I loved that we could eat when we were hungry. And to this day, I still love this. When we're hungry, we sleep when we're tired. Wellness is such a huge portion of our life. To me, it's really everything, because if you don't have your health, you have nothing, really. Doesn't matter what job you have. It doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank. It doesn't matter what house you're living in. It doesn't matter whether you're schooling, unschooling, homeschooling. It doesn't matter. If you don't have wellness, what do you have? So I realized, I'm going to use the word freedom, Jen, because I kept thinking about that word. I know we hate labels, but the freedom that this has given our family. And I'm going to tell you, I've had many days where I've cried and been like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I was a teacher. There have been days I've doubted myself. The other thing I have found very helpful over the years is that I have people in my life, they're just a couple of steps ahead of me. Christy Collins is one of those people. And I remember her oldest, and she'll share her story, but her oldest Chrissy, I'm sure you'll share this, was kind of a later reader. Like he just, because she wasn't pushing it and he was reading a little later. And now again, elementary school, like kids are reading by like 5 or 6. If they don't know all of their reading by 5 or 6, like they're behind. And these teachers are going to scare the crap out of you, because you know what? I was one of those teachers. I was one of those teachers that sat at a parent conference and went over the benchmarks and went over the checklist, and parents would leave in tears because their kids were behind. I cringe thinking about what I did for all those years, because when Noah kind of came into school age, kindergarten, I decided, you know what, I'm loving this. I'm not sending him off to kindergarten. I want to keep him close, and we're loving what we've created, our social circle, all of it, our farm trips, our bread baking, all of it. And I never taught him his alphabet. Crazy, right? School teacher, never teaching my 5-year-old his alphabet. I didn't teach it to him, but you know what? He learned his alphabet, because we'd be driving in the car and we'd be like reading signs together and searching for the letter B, or searching for berries that started with B, or whatever it was. We just lived. We lived. And then first grade came, and I did write a formal letter of intent to Andover. That's our town. And we started our journey. And so because I have a background in teaching, I did want to choose some curriculum. So I found some things that I knew about, some things I thought would work. What I picked for Noah back in, I know he's 11 now, do the math, it's too late, I can't, but whatever, however many years ago that was, 6, 7 years ago, it's not the same stuff I'm using with my 6, 7-year-old now today, my second son, my third child, because every child is different and every child needs a different approach. So in a school setting, it's like, this is the curriculum we use and this is what you do, and you need to be at this benchmark by this date, by this time. With homeschooling, where you're not being dictated by the district, by the town, by the school, you have this freedom. So I remember being anxious that Noah really wasn't reading yet. Christy was a mentor to me, and she kept saying to me, Christy, I don't know if I've shared this with you, and Christy is one of my best friends, but I'm not sure if I've actually ever verbalized this to you. Christy would say to me, he's not really like fluently reading yet, but then all of a sudden one day she's like, yep, my son's reading chapter books. It was like almost overnight, right, Christy? And I just watched that, and I kind of tucked that aside. And then when it came to Noah, 7, not really reading. 8, smart little boy. 8, not really reading. And all of the people around me, my in-laws, my parents, oh, he's not reading? Are they supposed to start reading at 5 or 6? And I was like, I'm just letting this flow. I'm letting him learn at his own pace. And I didn't know what the heck I was doing, guys. I was convinced I was screwing him up for life. Okay, he's 11 now. He's an avid chapter book reader. My children are in the other room right now. My uncle is doing a read aloud for them, Phantom Toll Booth. And so at 8 o'clock every night, they sit and they get a couple chapters read to him. And he's my most chatty child, because as soon as the half hour is over, he'll tell me everything. He'll tell me the whole story. He'll tell me, he's comprehending. He's a fabulous writer. Christy knows I would call her crying that he couldn't spell. And we're talking 9 or 10. I was like, he just can't even spell. And now it's just clicked. And you know why it's clicked? It's like if we forced our babies to learn to walk at 9 months because we saw another baby walking at 9 months. Think about the span of walking. It's 9 months to 18 months. Reading is the same thing. Writing is the same thing. Spelling is the same thing. And when we're pumping our children through a school system or a set curriculum, and we're not able to go with that flow, we don't allow, and we're not paying attention to the little nuances and cues that they give us, that they're just not ready, or that they're not interested, or that they need to learn jumping on a trampoline, or they need to learn walking through the woods and learning the letter L because we're going to go collect leaves and then glue them into a letter L later, which also starts with L. So anyway, that was Noah. Then Ellie came along, totally different child, totally different approach. And now here, and so she's really starting to read now. She's turning 9 and she's reading little chapter books. Are my kids exactly where they're supposed to be according to my school district standards in every single benchmark? I mean, personally, I don't care, but probably not. And I'm completely okay with that. And the reason for that is it's taken me years, and I know some of you are jumping in and want this to look perfect from the beginning. It's not going to. I hate to tell you that. It's just not. But it's taken me years to trust. That's really what it's come down to for me. And now I've watched a mentor and a friend of mine who her son has, even though he might have been like a later reader, is thriving. I watched Noah, kind of a later reader, thriving. Now Ellie, awesome. She's reading, she's writing. Gabriel, totally different child. It's my third. He's turning 7 in a few days. And here I am again, like the little teacher in the back of my mind. Oh no, he's supposed to be reading. He's supposed to be doing this. But you know what he did last night? He took a manila folder on his own with a flashlight and wrote all of his multiplication facts on a manila folder. And this morning I woke up and I was like, oh, their room is being organized right now. And he pulls out this little folder out of the big mess. And he's like, Mama, look what I did. I mean, math work, check. So, guys, close my door, please. So anyway, I don't expect my children to be all on like the perfect level at the perfect time. And it's taken me years to kind of unlearn. And I think that's, Jen alluded to that with the unschooling, to unlearn all of the things that we've been schooled our entire lives, that we've been told if our children have been in school, and then be able to really find our own way that feels right, that feels authentic to our family. So all of us on here now, there's, 80 of us on here live, and I'm sure there's gonna be hundreds more watching this recording. We all have different families, and we all have different flows and different interests. And so that's why this umbrella of homeschooling is a really hard thing. We can't just put you into one little like pigeonhole and be like, this is what it is, because it's really gonna look different for everybody. And there's Christy saying that her oldest didn't read until 9. He went from reading nothing to reading Harry Potter. And that's what happened with mine too. And I'm very grateful to have had someone in my life that told me it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And it has been. So very quickly before I toss the torch over, I chose a phonics program that I really like. It's called Explode the Code. I'm just going to throw that out there. You can look into it. I get it on Amazon. I just like, it's very black and white. It's a little boring. Some kids may not like it, but I like that it sequentially takes kids through sounds. It can work on spelling, but it's not something that we do every day. It's something we might pull out on a rainy day, or it might be something that we pull out when, we're not talking 5 days a week, 2 hours a day. We're like, I don't know, maybe out of like a 30-day month, maybe we're doing it like 10 days, maybe. The math program that I intentionally chose was the program that our town used. In the back of my mind, I thought maybe one day we would send them to school. We're not. They love being homeschooled, and we love the freedom and the flexibility to travel and to sleep when we want to and eat when we want to. So we're not giving that up. But I did want to pick that program that the town used just so I could kind of keep them along. We're moving along at a pace that works for our family. So that means some days we are working through 5 pages, other days it's 0 pages for many days or weeks in a row. And what our family finds, and I'm sure the 4 others might agree, we're very organized, like September, October, November, we've got all these goals, like we're organized. And maybe Jen, where you're more radical unschooling, this might not be your flow. But then the holidays come and the winter kind of comes and we kind of like get off track, and then we're off track for several months, and then January comes and we're back, and then the nice weather comes and we're at the beach and we're traveling and we're road tripping and we're loving our life. So learning can happen at the grocery store. It can happen in the car. It can happen watching YouTube videos. It can happen watching TV. It can happen while they're playing Minecraft. Learning doesn't need to be in a workbook on a piece of paper. And I think what's really sad about what some of the new restrictions are in the schools is that these children, and I know this is a concern for many of you as I read in your comments, these children are going to be forced into a small desk for how many days, how many hours a day, not able to talk to their friends they haven't seen in 8 months. And a lot of it is extremely developmentally inappropriate. It's completely developmentally inappropriate to expect a 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old to sit all day with a mask, not interacting with other people. And then there's so many questions. I heard a piece on NPR. So many questions come up. What do you do if they're disobeying? I mean, do you send them home? School is supposed to be safe, right? School is supposed to be a nurturing environment. So as a homeschooler, you get to create that. You get to decide what your schedule is and how you're learning and what you're learning. And I guess I'll close with just tune into your child. Don't feel like you have to follow a certain book because the district tells you this is what you're supposed to use, or it's because it's what I use or a friend uses. If you have 4 children, they all might be doing something different. And you know what? I know that might sound a touch chaotic, but you do find your flow over time, okay? And trust. Trust is the word that I'm going to be putting out there for the night. Okay, so let's pass the torch over. Rachel, go ahead. I'll spotlight your video.
All right. Well, first off, Jamie, thank you so much for including me in tonight. And I've loved hearing what you had to say, Jen. I've never had a chance to meet you, but it sounds like a beautiful school experience, learning experience at your house. So just to give you a little bit of background as to why our family chose to homeschool. My husband and I, we have one 8-year-old daughter named Zoe, and I am actually due with baby number 2 in the end of the year in December. So the reason why we chose to homeschool, and we knew right from the beginning that we were going to homeschool, and it's because my husband and I both had 2 very different schooling experiences. He was diagnosed with ADHD, and so he had a lot of problems at school. He had to sit next to, his desk was put next to the teacher's desk so that he wouldn't be a distraction. They even got to a point where the janitor made a box around his desk. And this led to a lot of issues for himself, and he was bullied at school. So you can imagine that was a really challenging school experience for him. As for me, I was like the ideal student. I was National Honor Society. I was taking AP classes. I was captain of the sports teams. I also was an artist, and I won art competitions and stuff like that. I was the ideal student for all teachers. But we both came away from school with very similar experiences in the fact that we came out trying to please other people and trying to fit in with society and what they expected of us, rather than coming out knowing who we were. And we knew that we didn't want that for our child. And so we knew that we had to give her a different opportunity, and that was through homeschooling. And also, just to let you know, we are not a traditional household in the fact that we actually live in a tiny house on wheels. So I'm a huge advocate for, you don't need to have a traditional setup of a school within your home. You don't have to have that desk. You can learn at the table. You can learn like we do a lot outside. We get out into the community, we get out in nature, and that is where a lot of that learning happens, and in the kitchen, definitely. So don't feel like you need to kind of create a school in your basement or take over your dining room and make it look like a classroom. You don't need that. So our style of homeschooling, there's a little bit of the radical unschooling, and then there's a lot of nature-based schooling, and then we also do unit studies. So before I tell you about unit studies, just to back up a little bit, I don't feel like we fit into any one category. And so I read this somewhere that another homeschooling family called it us schooling. And I think that really sums us up in our style of homeschooling, is that we do what's best for our family and for our child, and how she learns and how well we work together, and we adapt and we take a little bit of different pieces because that's what works for us. So we're us schoolers. So the unit studies, I'm not sure if any of you are aware of that, but it's really kind of a child-led for us type of studying, where I go based on what my daughter's interests are, what her passions are, what she's excited about, and then I adapt our our lessons based on that theme. So for example, we are doing a Greek mythology theme coming up. We came across the Percy Jackson series, and we're reading it as a family. We're on book 3, and we're so excited to keep going. And so we are taking all different subjects, and we're piecing together a way for her to learn math and science and history and language arts, and home economics and all these things. And I've pieced together different things. So it takes a little bit of work, but I know that this is how my daughter thrives, and she just gets in this wealth of knowledge because it's all based on something that she's truly interested in. And we've done this over the years with birds, with worms, with a whole slew of different types of topics. It's based on what she's interested in. And sometimes these can go for, you know, a week or 2 weeks, or sometimes it goes on for a couple months because she's just so into it. And then I keep looking for more ways for us to integrate these lessons based on the theme. And what Jamie had touched upon was how we are out in the community, and Jen, that we're out in the community. We're out at the library, we're out in nature parks, hitting the trails. We're learning everywhere we go, at the grocery stores, on the bike paths, you know, and all these different places. And there's opportunities to learn everywhere. And so our typical schedule over the course of a 5-day week, we would find that we probably are home 2 days a week. And then another 2 days would be out in the community, hitting up those different places. And then we also did 1 day of co-op, where there was about a dozen families that came together, and different parents would teach different courses over the course of the day. With COVID, we won't be participating in a co-op that large, but these pods or these mini co-ops are definitely something that, if you're comfortable with, reach out to other families on these Facebook groups and things like that, the homeschool Facebook groups, you know, telling them that you're looking for this. You will find them, because it's a great way for people to learn from other parents. So all that responsibility doesn't have to fall on you. And the parents are going to be teaching subjects that they're passionate about. And then that's going to fuel and excite the kids to learn in an exciting way. And then someone was referring to, you know, what does your schedule look like at home? And so we use a particular type of schedule called a loop schedule, which is a little bit different than many homeschooling families. A lot of them will do, say they'll cover math, science, and history on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And they'll cover writing, Spanish on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Well, it just so happens that, you know, Tuesdays ends up, that's the day that kids or the parents are always end up sick, or appointments get scheduled. And so then by the end of the year, you find that you fell behind teaching a particular subject. So for us, using the loop schedule was really an effective way to make sure we cover all different subjects equally. And the way that would work is you kind of imagine a circle, and, you know, or a clock. And then at each of the times, you would see a different subject. So say English, or let's say writing, and then mathematics, and then history, and then reading, writing, and then an activity. And so we go in that cycle, and we'd spend as much time as our daughter wanted to on those subjects, and to really get into something as long as she wanted to. And then we just continued following that cycle. So we never missed anything, and we spent just as much time as she wanted to, and we covered everything equally. So it's that's a neat way to schedule things, and that it allows flexibility. And if someone gets sick, or an opportunity comes up where you can go and meet a friend at the park, or it's a beautiful day, let's go to the beach in November because it's gorgeous out, you can do that, and you just pick up right where you left off the last day you had a home day. So the loop schedule worked really well for us. Jamie, I could just totally repeat your whole story over with the reading. Zoe was also not on target with reading where the standards would have been. And then just poof, overnight, she was just reading, and within a few weeks she was reading chapter books, and she just turned 8 and she's entering in the 3rd grade, and she's reading 6th, 7th grade level chapter books now. And it's just, her vocabulary is amazing. And it's just allowing your child to be where they're at and accepting that that's okay, wherever they're at is perfectly normal, and that they will blossom when they're ready to learn certain things. And it's a beautiful thing to witness, because things just spark and appear just overnight. It's just beautiful. And there was a quote that I couldn't find, but I wanted to summarize this because I thought this was just really powerful. That it talked about, what if your child was behind in math, but yet in piano your child was brilliant? What would you do? Would you hire a tutor for your child in math, or would you hire a tutor for your child for piano? And wouldn't it be beautiful if you hired the tutor for for a piano teacher, because you're embracing your child's true passion and saying, yes, I believe in you, that let's give you all the resources to become even better at that because you love it, than saying, you're behind in this and we need to make sure that you're mediocre in this, and we're not going to give you so much support in your piano. And then they never get to blossom to the true potential that they could. So maybe just accepting your child for where they are, and know that not every person and every child is going to be the same. And we don't want that, because God, if everybody was the same, right? So just embracing your child where they are at is a beautiful thing. And I just wanted to show you a few quick resources. This book, The Brave Learner by Julie Bogart, you need to get this book, okay? This is a beautiful book for just giving you ideas of finding the magic of living every day and really just embracing life and the opportunities for learning while living life. And there's just so many great examples and activities in here for you to kind of just really embrace this. So this is definitely on your read list. And then we are a very nature-based family. And so this curriculum, this is a math curriculum called Wild Math. And this, because we love learning outdoors and everywhere that we can, this is a great way to like integrate learning your math lessons with sticks and pine cones and acorns. It's really cool. And then I find that Usborne has some really great graphics in here that are very exciting. They're not the typical worksheets that are black and white. They're colorful and exciting for children. My daughter really enjoys them. And then the last resource I wanted to share was the Thinking Tree Fun Schooling. And these are all different journals based on different themes, which fits into our unit studies that we like. And they're kind of like fill in the blank type journals, but it encourages you to use books from the library and YouTube videos and documentaries and different ways of gathering the information and then applying it and putting it into these workbooks. So this is a way that you can, and they have all different types of themes in there, and these are also dyslexia friendly font, which is a great thing if you are looking for something like that for your kids. So I think I summed up most of the stuff.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Sorry.
It was fantastic. I love it. Your heart is shining through. And I know we have a bunch of questions that are coming through here in the chat. So we're going to have Christy share her story. And but Christy, before I pass it over to you, I know some of you had very specific questions like 8th grade curriculum and what do I do to ensure that my child has enough credits to graduate high school. And so some of like the credit questions, some of those questions you really need to go back to your district and to your school and find out what it is specifically you need. You know, once you get that letter of intent into your town, and we're going to give you some resources in a moment after Christy shares her story, You then can do what you want to do throughout the year, and then you just report at the end of the year with what the town asks. I purposely do not choose standardized testing. It's actually one of the reasons I cringed every time I needed to have those little children take those tests. So it's one of the reasons I really started to embrace homeschooling. So I do not opt to do standardized testing. At the end of the year, I basically let the district know on progress, on track, thank you, and we move on to the next year. Okay, so Christy, are you still with us?
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here. Hello. So I'm going to set a timer so that I don't run over because I thought I had nothing to share. And so I put down a few notes on my phone and I have like 4,000 things to share. So I'm just going to trust that I'm going to address a little bit around some of the questions that are coming through, because I'm not going to talk about my why we did it, our whole process, how we choose curriculum. I'm actually going to put a link here in the chat because I've kind of done a lot of those things on my Facebook page and they're all in one post. So you can go read all about like why we did it and all that stuff. It echoes a lot of what the other ladies shared. I want to talk to you. I'm like that's so inspiring, but how do I do this? Like, tell me how I do this. Like, what do I exactly do? I'm that kind of person. And so I'm going to share with you a little bit about what it's like to run a business and homeschool at the same time. I'm also an extreme introvert, and so that has provided many challenges in having 2 kids at home all the time, and how do you do that and stay sane. I'm going to talk a little bit about teaching different ages as well, and how you can kind of make that work. So my boys are 11 and 14, so I'll have a high school freshman, which is crazy, and a 6th grader. And my oldest went to 2 years of preschool, and then from kindergarten on, he's been homeschooled, and my youngest child has never gone to school. So never thought we would be doing homeschooling ever in a million years. But the moment I knew we would homeschool, I actually never had even heard of homeschooling. I don't know. I did Catholic school all the way through college. I was like the double major, double minor 4.0, like follow the rules. If there was a follow the rules kid, it was me. I don't remember how I heard about homeschooling. Sometimes we just find ourselves in these places, but we were outside playing in the snow. It was probably in like March or something. And we've been playing for hours and hours. And the school bus went by and they were dropping kids off from school. And I had this moment where I realized, oh my gosh, if Evan goes to kindergarten next year, he will just now be getting home. Like, we won't be in the snow. I won't even have seen him. Now, as an introvert, I really like having breaks from my kids. I'm not going to lie. Like, I had to build that in because for my sanity, I could not be with them all the time. But I also knew I never wanted to look back at parenting and like being with my kids and say I didn't have as much time as I wanted. And that was one of the reasons that we decided to homeschool. So my son, Evan, I asked my 14-year-old, because one of my big things around homeschooling is I want them to be really independent, critical thinkers. I want to get them into adulthood like now. And I've always been grooming them for adulthood. Like, let's get them. So if I had to go away for 2 weeks, which I'm not going to do that, but if I did, like they could take care of themselves. They could take care of their learning. They could take care of the dog, the house. For us, life skills are really important. And so I'm always like asking them things. And one of the things I said, what should I tell all these moms and dads? And my 14-year-old said, don't force anything. If something's not working, try something else. And then my 11-year-old's like, school sucks, right? So those are my 2 boys, right? So I'm a recovering perfectionist. And one of the first pieces of advice I'm going to give you is you're going to probably be like a first-time parent when you brought your newborn home. You're going to try and do it all right. You're going to freak out about every little thing. You're going to stress about it. And then, like 5 years into it, you're going to be like, yeah, we're just going to figure this out this year. Whatever, that worked, that didn't. Please give yourself grace. And know that you're probably going to stress a little bit the first year, maybe the second year, and then you will find your groove. You cannot expect to have the same groove as those of us who've been homeschooling for almost 10 years. So please be kind and gentle to yourself. Let's see. So we always said we would take homeschooling 1 year at a time, and that's kind of how we take everything. Because just like with parenting, you finally have to figure out how to parent your 3-year-old, and then they're 4, and it's completely different. So with my boys, every year it's different. I can't tell you what curriculum to choose. I don't even have my curriculums fully picked out for next year because they're different than they were like a month ago. So I really think that the first step, and this is one of the things that's in that post, is I take people through, like, figure out why you're doing this. Why are you homeschooling? Because there will be days when it gets hard and prickly and just a little like this, and you want to know why you're doing it. It's really, really important. It's going to look different for you if you're just doing it to get through this year and then you're hoping to send them back to school, right? You're probably going to pick a lifestyle and a curriculum that's similar to school if you want to kind of keep them along that path. We've tried to go very opposite that. We kind of, as much as I love schedules, we don't have a set schedule each day because I find that every day is a little bit different for us. But we do have a rhythm, and I can tell you, I like using rhythms instead of routines and schedules, because schedules, you fall behind. And as a recovering perfectionist, when I fall behind, I start to beat myself up, and then I beat my kids up. And that's not what we want to do in homeschooling. So for me, I found like a rhythm and a flow, which can kind of like ebb and flow. And my kids play hockey. So if they don't get home till 10 at night, we're not going to get up at 8. So I used to be like, we're all going to get up. We're going to start at 8. And we never got up by 8. And we never finished, we never finished when we thought we would. So I look a lot to my boys. So I'll give you an example of like last year. So my son was in 5th grade and he said, Mom, because I ask them every year, how do you see this going? And sometimes they're like, yeah, well, we just like to do no school. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work. We're kind of like a middle of the road family. So we pick certain subjects every year that we want to focus on, like 3 major subjects. It's usually something that we think they either love, something that they need to work on, or something that fits in with our homeschooling values, like the things that we think are going to really help them in life. So for example, this year, they're both focusing on science and math. Math is always in there, and writing. We didn't do really any official science last year because we were focused on history and learning the Constitution and rights and freedoms and all that stuff. So we kind of pick a couple really core subjects that we do every day. And then the rest of the subjects, like, have another 3 or 4 that just kind of come in and out as we decide to do them. So my son last year wanted to get up and have all his homeschooling done by like 8 in the morning. So we set everything up for him so he could do that. I wasn't up by then. But that was the point. He wanted to finish it without me. He wanted to do it. He wanted to go skate on the ice rink and then come back and do the math that we did together. My other son would get up late and he would just, same thing. He wanted to do it without me. It's very humbling to homeschool kids who want to be independent. But I said, that was our whole point of how we did it, was to make them independent, right? So they each kind of set their own schedule, and as long as they get stuff done, not necessarily each day, but at least through the month, we're cool with it. We combine subjects a lot. That's how we teach multiple ages. So we'll do history together a lot. We'll do science together a lot. We'll read alouds and do reading of books and discussion of books together a lot. So we really only do math separately, and then sometimes we'll even do writing separately if we can find a curriculum that we can kind of modify for the 2 of them. We do a lot of work on the way to hockey practice. We're in the car all the time. So we do multiplication stuff and Mad Libs, and we listen to podcasts and books on tape all the time. Homeschooling does not happen for us in the house. A lot of the times it's when we're away, we're at the beach, we're in the car. So for us, I'm just looking at like the working parents. So the working parents, I think that it's really important to set expectations and boundaries, right? So for me, I've been working ever since we started homeschooling. And a big reason I got into my business was so that I could homeschool, so I wouldn't have to be going away to work. So there were times where I would have my husband take them on Saturdays. We called it Boys' Day. And he'd take them and go do something with them while I worked. Every year they've gone to my in-laws on Wednesdays. I've said, I need help. I need a break. I need time by myself. And I also need to really be able to have them learn from other people, not just me. So my in-laws would take them and they would do things that I couldn't do. Like my mother-in-law does arts and crafts, which I suck at. My father-in-law does all like the engineering, the science, and the space, which I also suck at. For a long time, they went to Marrowhawk, which is a wilderness program. So from 9 to 3, they were in the woods every Tuesday. Again, it gave me a work day, and it gave them all their science, how to build shelters, how to make fires, how to coexist with kids from age 6 to 13, for 6 hours at a time out in the woods. So we kind of tried, for my business, I said, I need to figure out how much time I need to run my business? And then how do I find them other learning opportunities that will give me that space and time and give them opportunities to learn without me? So I also, honestly, for a long time, the first 2 years, I built my business at night. I did that. We were together during the day. And when we were in the car, when they were really young and we weren't really doing like crazy learning, sometimes they'd have a book on tape and I'd be on a call or I'd be listening to my business stuff. And then, so it kind of ebbed and flowed. But the thing about homeschooling is you don't have to homeschool your kids from like 9 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. If you work, you can, maybe you do a little bit in the morning before you work, you can do a little bit at night, you can do maybe all of your homeschooling on the weekends. You can get through more homeschooling in like 2 hours of a day than most people do in the whole full day of school. We are usually done by lunchtime. There's my timer. So we homeschool in the morning, we break for lunch. They have a dog walking business, so they walk their dogs partway through. We take lots of breaks. We take lots of snack breaks. We take lots of cuddle with the dog breaks because my youngest son especially, he can't sit down or focus for a long time. So it's like, that doesn't work. We go outside and throw the ball for a while. They go out and they weight train, they come back in. And afternoons are usually more like, let's read a book together, let's watch a crash course video together, things that don't require quite as much focus and concentration, because usually by mid-afternoon, like we're all done. So the goal is always every year, let's get it done by lunch at the latest. So anyway, I'm going to stop because my timer went off. But I have lots of posts on my Facebook page, so that will give you a little backstory about kind of how we do things and why we did them that way.
Christy, thank you so, so much. Such gems of wisdom there. And we follow a very similar schedule. Our goal is noon as well. And again, 3 different children. So I have one that loves to set an alarm, but again, that's her choice. She's choosing to set an alarm. I saw somebody ask something up here, if it's self-indulgent to allow children to kind of like sleep when they're tired and eat when they're hungry, and just to not have more structure. You know, I wanted to address that for a second, and ladies, feel free to chime in with your thoughts there. But to me, because my husband and I are entrepreneurs, we also work from home. We run our own business. To me, and again, our family, it's different for everyone. Homeschooling mirrors real life for us much more than if I were to send my kids to school, because we don't have 9 to 5 jobs. I don't have to answer to anyone. I get to set my own hours. I get to set how much I work, you know, and where I work. And so chances are my children being raised this way are going to, you know, I'd be happy with anything that they choose to do, but they all have entrepreneurial blood in them. So I could see them choosing something down the line that allows them to have that kind of body autonomy and you know, and freedom with their choices. So I think giving children natural, not punishment, but natural consequences for what they are choosing to do is in total alignment with real life. You know, because if you think about it, whether you have a boss or whether you work for yourself, if you don't get your work done, you don't get paid, you don't make money, right? If you don't do the grocery shopping, there's no food in the house. You know, there's very natural consequences. If you do stay up too late, you might be very tired tomorrow and have a headache. So I've really tried to teach my children to listen to their bodies and listen to them, to like their own rhythm, so that they're able to make choices that make sense. And I'll tell you, it's a little scary to just allow children to make those kinds of choices, but they're really starting to figure it out. They know that they need to go to bed because they want to get up and get their work done by noon. This is now this is intrinsic. This is self-motivated. This is coming from them, not teacher directed or parent directed. Of course, I'm guiding and nagging and doing the mom thing, you know, sometimes. But I did just want to touch on that a little bit, because I think it's really empowering to teach children from a very young age how to care for themselves and how to make choices, especially when it comes to health. So ladies, I know we're at 9:05. Rachel, Jen, Christy, is there anything else that any of you want to touch on? We had so many questions in the registration and so many questions that are coming in here. Does anyone have anything else they're feeling called to share? Couple of things, Camp Lincoln, I was going to say, we also are big fans of Camp Lincoln. That's in Lincoln, New Hampshire. That's Kingston, New Hampshire. I know some of you are watching from California and Washington and Connecticut, and you're all over. But this is what I just said to David up above, because David asked, I just want to get the paperwork in. I want to get the how did he word it? Let me see if I can scroll up. David said, I just want to meet the paperwork requirements, satisfying the paperwork requirements, New York State. So this is what I would do. I think part of kind of unlearning what we've been schooled our whole lives and what we think we're supposed to do, I think involves sometimes turning down, and I'll tell you why I'm about to say this, turning down what we are giving, let's say in this case, New York State. And the reason for this is because there are homeschool laws, there are laws in place where in every state is different. So you need to look that up. Let me give you the link. Did you guys see the link that I put up there? I can put it again. I'm just gonna copy the resources, but there's a bit.ly link that says homeschooling graphic. And at the bottom of that homeschooling graphic, let me see if I can share it. Yeah, I'll share it really quick. These two here, hslda.org is a very helpful one. And then simplehomeschool.net is also a really helpful one. So you have access to this graphic and you can, you'll be able to get to these resources. But what I was going to share with you, to David especially, is try to find a homeschool Facebook group. And it's going to be filled with actual homeschoolers, people that have been doing this for years, like the four of us. And they'll say, this is what the state requires. And obviously you're gonna need to do your own homework with your own state first. It does require a little bit of research, but it's not complicated. Usually it's a letter with very basic information with your letter of intent. That's usually what it's called. And I think less is more. And I'll tell you why. Our curriculum choices change over the years. So I don't want to say to Andover, Massachusetts, I'm going to absolutely be using this textbook, this. So I keep it kind of vague and they accept it. And every town is different. So you got to talk to your town, talk to your state and find out the vibe, because not only is every state different, but every town underneath state umbrellas are different. So in my town, they've completely accepted that, where I say, this is our intent. I quote some of the legal jargon, and I say, we're going to be using a variety of resources, online learning, because we love OUTSCHOOL. It's like a cool little place to take classes. We love YouTube. We do a little bit of like everything online here and there, just to kind of supplement and fill in. Anyway, I don't love to over report at the beginning of the year and tell them that I'm going to be using all of these things when how on earth do I know where the year is going to go? Same thing at the end of the year. I give a very kind of minimum report that says their name and the grade level and adequate progress at grade level. That's it. So what you'll find through veteran homeschoolers is when we start to give them all of this information, and all of the homeschooling websites will tell you this too. And guys, I'm speaking to you here as a 10-year elementary school teacher who never thought I would homeschool. I thought it was very weird. It's just ironic that we are. But just by giving them the kind of the basic, puts you in I think a safer spot from a legal standpoint. And I don't know, Rachel or Jen or Christy, if you want to chime in there, but I think we've heard over the years, especially from legal advisors, that less is more, simple is better. Because when we start to tell them, well, we did this and we did that and we did this and we did pages 18 to 24, and you start to really get very specific, then they start to really almost expect that from every single homeschooling parent across the entire country. And so,
I'd actually love to just chime in, because I think that for many of you, as it was for me, the biggest challenge may be the transition into owning your child's education. And it won't just be your child's education, it's going to be yours. Like, I learn as much, if not more, sometimes than my kids. I get so excited learning it a second time around, because I'm like, oh, this was not exciting in 4th grade, but this is really like the Revolutionary War is like kick ass. Why did I think this was boring, right? Like, or borrowing and carrying numbers. I memorized math. I got A's all the way through calculus. I couldn't tell you what the heck I did in calculus. And now I'm going through and like with my first grade, I was like, oh my gosh, that's why you carry the 10. Like the curriculum we picked explained it to me. And I was like, this is so cool. So anyway, you're going to get as much out of this, I believe, as your kids. And a lot of it is going to be just changing your relationship with them and changing your relationship with how you view schooling. My husband and I, one of the reasons why we decided to homeschool was we said, you know, what would we both have been like if we hadn't been put down the path? You go to school, you go to college, you get a corporate job. I mean, we really looked at that, like, how would we have turned out without that? Like, I don't know, it's like the animal, I don't know, whatever. So you're gonna own your child's education. For this year, just think of it as this year. You don't have to worry about getting them through calculus. I always laughed when people said, well, what are you gonna do about calculus and physics? I'm like, I don't know, they're 5. I will figure that out when they're, you know, a senior or whenever they do calculus. I don't know. But a lot of the learning for you as a parent is going to be, instead of just saying, well, school is something that the school district does and curriculum is something that the government creates, it's now up to you. So when you're thinking about submitting an education plan, it's not like you're submitting it to someone to have them go, okay, let's see if you're doing it right. You're not asking for permission. The school district is going to try and make you feel like you have to ask them for permission and that they get to tell you whether yes or no. In reality, sure, you're getting an approval letter back, but I want you to go into it with the mindset of, I am in charge of my child's learning for this whole year. And I'm going to give them the little bit that they need, right, to give me my check on my checkbox, but I'm in charge. It's going to feel very different than going in saying, well, they're going to tell me what to do, and maybe I should just use the online curriculum because it'll be easier that way and I won't mess it up. You're going to mess it up. We all mess it up. It's just like in parenting. You're going to mess something up. Your kids are going to have bad days. You're going to have bad days. I will tell you probably at least once a month, I will tell my kids, I'm just going to send you to school. And now they know I'm just totally joking. But when they were younger, it was like, maybe I will send them to school. That might be easier. But then you go back to your why. Why are you doing this, right? Revisit that why over and over and over again and give yourself grace. So own it. You can do this. You don't need a teaching degree. You don't need patience. God knows I do not have patience. You don't even have to want to spend every waking moment with your kids because you're not going to, right? You don't have to teach them. You can be a facilitator. I don't teach my kids. We were going through pre-algebra the other day and he's like, how do I do this? I'm like, I actually don't remember that. Never used that in my adult life. Let's watch it together and I will hopefully remember when I see the video. So I think that part of it too is, maybe instead of focusing so much on picking the right curriculum, like this math workbook is going to make or break your homeschooling year, I would encourage you to read some books that are going to change your mind about what school even is and education is. John Paul Gatto, like Holt, like some, we can post some of these maybe in the follow-up email, but work on your mindset too and get really excited for this, however it looks. Because that matters so much more than what the school district wants you to put on a form or what curriculum you get. I just firmly believe that. So you can do this. You can totally do this. We all believe in you. You wouldn't be here if this was not the right timing for you and your child or your children to start this. So anyway, that's my little motivational speech.
That was such a beautiful way to end that, Christy. Thank you. It's so true. It's so true. Facilitator, I'm in charge. These are all, when we are truly homeschooling, these are all things that we can embrace and start to embody. And so that's why we really wanted to differentiate schooling at home, mandated by the town, by your district. Hey, we're going to do 2 days in the classroom, 3 days homeschool. We really wanted to share the difference there. If you're truly embracing homeschooling, get your letter of intent in. Remember what Christy said, you're not asking permission, and listen to your kids' cues and have fun with it. So check us all out on, I think all of us are on Facebook. You can send us a message there. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram. I just had a few people message me privately saying that you'd like to stay in touch. I'm always chatting. I'm always available. So please feel free. You can find me, Jamie McKenzie, on either of those platforms. I'm going to do my very best to pull an email list from like the 260 people who registered and send out this recording as well as all of the resources. I do hope you were able to snag a couple of the resources that we shared in the chat. Does anyone need anything again before we hang up? So that in case like the email list doesn't work, or technology isn't always the best. Did everybody get all of those resources that were shared up above? I tried to copy and paste them a couple of times. All right, well, thank you so much for being here, for taking these, this hour and 15 minutes out of your evening. And huge gratitude to Jen and Christy and Rachel for shining light on all of these amazing people and sharing your story. I hope you left with one piece of information. And for those of you, before you hop off, if you just want to share one thing you learned tonight, I think that the teacher in me it will help me feel like I did something tonight, that we did something tonight by really giving you at least one takeaway. So if you're not hopping off right away, I'd be happy to stay on and read the chat. Yes, Beth, I'm going to copy and paste the links and send, it'll all be in one email. The YouTube link to the recording as well. Yes, Erin, mindset's very big. All right, well, thank you so much for those of you that are sharing what you learned. I like, the teacher in me, I like seeing what people learned. I like the brain. I'm going to see if I can save this chat too. All right, well, thank you so much. And please feel free to reach out to any of us. Christy has that amazing post on her Facebook. Make sure you pop over there, full of resources for you. And have a really wonderful school year ahead. Bye, everyone. Good night.
Good night, everybody.